Charles says, sometimes finding institutions that hold to the word is hard, but I have to believe if they're going to hold fast to the word, they will hold steady against the culture. I think what we found is that we just can't trust. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So we want to imagine that because an institution has a good origin story, a good foundation, it has good documents in place, decent trustees, that it's going to stand against the tides of the culture. And I think what we found is no, you can't trust. You can't trust. You need to demand transparency and accountability. Man, this is what I should have said during the formal segment. How many times do we need to go through this before we understand that you can't trust people? It doesn't matter what you've been through together. It doesn't matter how respectable they are or how smart they are. All humans are frail and fallen, and unless they're a sociopath, they care what other people think. And so to guard against that, we have to demand transparency, and that means accessing financial statements. That means accessing communications and having direct access to people who know things and are in power, getting them to report to the people who support them, not on their terms, but on the terms of the people who want to ask the questions. What we found in every institution is they'll say the words of transparency and accountability, but then they'll decide when and how they're available and what they'll speak to, and then what stays secret. And that's dysfunctional. That is the breeding ground of decay right there. And so that's where I get kind of frustrated with institutions that are currently coming into formation. Is it seems to me that they're willfully ignorant about our institutional history, and they're ignorantly optimistic about human nature. Like when you study history, when you study theology, you understand that there is no reason to be hopeful about human nature. Even when you have a Christian institution, even when you have perfect doctrine, even when you have the Holy Spirit present, nothing guards against sin like each other. Guard over one another, watch over one another, speak the truth to one another in love. How many one another's do we have in the New Testament? All of them are aimed at loving, accountability, and transparency. And if we refuse to do that for the sake of saving face or being respectable, then just close the doors right now, because we're already compromised. I mean, just be different, be godly, be biblical. And if that ruffles feathers, just go ahead and come to terms with that. Being a Christian is going to ruffle feathers. You'd like to think people within the church are not going to be ruffled. The reality of our current situation is that people within the church are every bit as fragile and offendable as people outside of the church. So leadership has to be willing to do this. And so the question before us is the GMC going to be a flash in the pan movement that then splinters, or is it actually going to form itself soberly in response to the world and human nature and institutional realities as they are? And that is a legitimate question.